Thank you all for joining. My name is Mark Donovan. I'm the Applications Engineering Manager for Audio-Technica, and we're actually going to go through some really basics on. Make sure I can get this correct screen shared here. Some really basics on microphone solutions. My intent is not really to do deep dive into the mechanics of things, but to try to get you familiar with what some of the different options are. And also, so you can know what questions to ask so that you can work with your team at Dobil to help solve your problem. There are a couple things that can kind of trip you up, so I want to make sure we get you through that. But first, just to kind of let you know, Technica, we're a family-owned company that was formed in Tokyo in 1962, and the whole goal of the founder was to get high-quality audio to people at affordable prices. At that point in time, they were working with cartridges and styluses for turntables, and they found that to get a high-quality cartridge, it was very expensive, and the average person could not afford that. Fast forward, by 1984, Audio-Technica had added both headphones and microphones to the transducer catalog, and also that year saw the introduction of the Unipoint series of microphones, which may or may not mean anything to you, but really what that was the first mass-produced small element condenser microphone. So when you started seeing these small elements on hanging or small elements on the end of a flexible gooseneck, we were the first ones to really bring that out, and really during that time frame we're kind of the Kleenex of those types of microphones. So it's something we have a lot of experience in. Fast forward again, and by the early 2000s we were clearly established as experts with condenser microphones, not only in that corporate environment but in recording studios and broadcast field. In fact, since the Olympic Games in 1996 in Atlanta, we have provided all of the broadcast microphones, which in South Korea in 2018, that was more than 5,000 microphones. So I like to always, when I'm talking to people about Audio-Technica microphones, between Grammy award-winning artists and NFL and PGA and the Olympics and everything else, I can guarantee you've heard Audio-Technica microphones. So today we have all manner, not only of microphones, but of electronics, wireless microphones, digital mixers, and all the things you need to get your audio from the air in your space into an electronic format so you can get it down the line, to have clear communications, to have good meetings, good, clear learning environments. So I wanted to kind of get a couple little really simple basic things out of the way first in talking about the high level difference between microphone types, between a dynamic and a condenser. And one of the reasons I want to bring this up is because I see this often as where a mistake is made. You've got dynamic microphones, not that you need to really remember what that's called, but that's typically the kind of microphone like you see there on the top right. It's that ball type of microphone that you see, singers singing into and performers. And that's used where, you need a lot of noise rejection. Like, for example, you're on a loud sound stage or a concert's going on, they get that isolation and rejection. And then the condenser mic, which is used for voice and music sources where you need detail and a good dynamic range of difference between your very soft and very loud. And that's kind of representative of like that gooseneck microphone on the right. What I will find, though, is that the dynamic microphone, that ball type microphone, it is simple and is inexpensive. But the problem is it has low sensitivity, and it needs to be very close to the talk or very close to the source. So if you take one of these microphones and just put it on a little stand or hang it somewhere out of the way at a distance away from people, it's not going to work well. It's attractive that its cost is lower, but that's not what it was made for. And so when you're talking about that distance miking, you need something with a little bit more sensitivity, something that's going to pick up that detail from a distance. And that's where the condenser mic comes into play. Another thing I often see as where things that can trip you up has to do with directionality. And I'm not going to get into all the details of directionality. You really need to know basically just two things. There are mics that don't have directionality. They're omnidirectional, pick things up in every direction. And then there's microphones that pick up in a single direction, unidirectional. Now, these directional mics are classified by different manufacturers with all kinds of names that you may hear thrown around, like cardioid, hypercardioid, supercardioid. But the reality is, what you need to know is some mics have a specific direction that they need to be pointed and some do not. A lot of times what I'll find, though, is that people like the idea of a microphone that picks up everything. That's the first go-to. Well, yeah, I want a microphone that picks up everything. But that's actually not always the case, and in fact is seldom really a good idea. I'll give you an example. So look, this is a boardroom type of setup. You got 14 chairs here. The idea that some people might say, okay, let me just throw a microphone in the middle of the table that will pick up equally in all directions. That should be good, right? In reality, not always. For example, let's just say that you have a person sitting inside of the red circle here who is a loud talker. They're very forceful, very direct, very loud in whatever they say. And at the same time, inside of that blue circle, you have somebody who is a soft talker, somebody who speaks very quietly. Getting that balance can be extraordinarily difficult if you only have one microphone in the middle that picks up equally in all directions. Because on the other end of the video conference or whatever you have going on, if somebody tries to turn the volume down so that the loud talker doesn't blast them out, then they can't hear the soft talker, and vice versa. So what would you be directed to do? What would be your best idea at that point? Well, your best idea would be get multiple microphones that have that directionality, that have it pointed specifically at the source that you want to pick up, so that you can then balance that. You can turn that loud talker down, you can turn that soft talker up, and give a nice balance so that the people on the other end can hear well, can hear clearly. And so when you start looking at all these other different kind of options, your theater style, classroom, U-shaped tables, you can see that it's going to be better to get that balance, to put these microphones on these tables in front of a certain number of chairs and get this all well balanced and the volume good. But as you might see in the upper and lower corners there, upper left and lower right, you've got areas where you don't have tables. And so that's where you start getting into, okay, well, what form factor do I use? What can I use? What are my options there? And really, when you're talking about form factor, you got two choices. You've got something that's going to be on your table and something that's not going to be on your table, something that may be suspended. As far as those that are on the table, you have a couple of choices. One is your boundary type, and they call it a boundary microphone because it does sit on, literally sits on the boundary of your table, and that boundary helps out the microphone. The advantage of these boundary type of microphones is they're close to the sound source. They're very close to you, so your isolation for your people is very good. They're pretty low visibility. Some of them are very small and low profile. Others, like you see in this picture on the lower right side, these are little button mics, as we often hear them called. They're inset into the table, and so they're not, it's not some big obnoxious device on the table. The disadvantage here, it does require a mount on or through the table. And I've seen in some situations, especially executive boardrooms, that may have some very, very expensive wood or marble tables, and drilling through or mounting on them is very difficult, or maybe not an option at all. And then the other problem is they can be easily blocked or covered. It's not unusual for someone to set a laptop up right in front of one of those, which will definitely alter the sound, or place paper on top of one, which not only blocks the sound, but the other end hears this paper on the microphone. So these are things, again, that to be considered when you're looking at these. One advantage, like I said, in this lower right corner, you not only have these small button mics here, but what you may not be able to make out is there's also little switches on them for the ability for someone to reach down and switch things on and off. So having that microphone close by, you have that advantage that you can incorporate as well. Option for a desktop or tabletop type of microphone is the gooseneck microphone. Now, the reality is this is probably your best choice from an audio standpoint, because it's going to allow you to position, flexibly position, because the gooseneck's got these flex pipe sections and you can move it around, but you can position it closest to the sound source. So you're going to have the best sound quality, the best sound isolation, all of that. The problem is it will require more microphones. You're going to have one of these gooseneck microphones for every 1 or 2 people. Maybe you can get away with 3 people, but you really are going to have more microphones, and you do have to have that mounted on or through your table, again, much like the boundary microphones. And in this case, you have something that, you're trying to position that very close to the person, so it can disturb sight lines. You could have sight line issues if you've got cameras in play, especially if you've got one that's zooming in on that individual. And so in these cases where people don't want something on the table or don't want sight lines obscured, what are your options? Well, that's where you get to your hanging microphones. And the advantage of these hanging microphones, like in this picture on the left, it's a single element hanging microphone. It's out of the sight lines, and it gives you a clear table workspace. And you can see from this picture in the middle right here on the lower end, you can see this, which is actually a room we're going to be going to a little later in this presentation. But you can see the little white, what looks like sticks hanging from the ceiling. Those are suspended microphones. They're out of the way, but they are further from the source. So this is going to be your furthest from the source option. So you do have to be very cautious about the directionality of the microphones and how many microphones you use when you're choosing this. The other disadvantage is if you have a flexible space, one where you may have a U-shaped table set up today or classroom tomorrow, these hanging mics are fixed in position, so they're very difficult to deal with. The next one that type that you might see is an array type. An array type microphone is definitely a buzzword. We have one, the one here on the left. What an array type microphone is: a microphone or a device that contains multiple elements of microphones that allows you to configure it and virtually point this microphone in any direction. They're out of sight lines, clear table space. Again, though, they are further from the source. They're in fixed positions. And some of the solutions, some of them, by our competitors, some of them that are out there by a number of our competitors, actually, that blend in and look like a ceiling tile or something like that. They're great microphones, but they do come at a cost. So as you start to get into these more advanced array type of things, your cost begins to go up. So you do have to be, again, you do have to be cautious and balance out what's best for you. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to switch off to 3 different examples in different spaces. The first one is going to be a small meeting space to show you what our solution type is there. Then we're going to go to a distance learning classroom, see how we solve that problem, and then to a reconfigurable meeting space with what we call a discussion system, which will have gooseneck microphones in front. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Jay Dunkel, who is our field rep and I believe is in Wadsworth, Ohio right now, is going to take over the presentation here and show you guys what it's like to deal with a small space.
Hello, thank you, Mark. Great presentation so far. So we are in a small room. It's approximately 12 by 10 or so. So more of a huddle space type of scenario. We can get 3 to 5 people around the table. And we have above us, you'll be able to see in the camera, one of the microphone arrays. And it is interfaced with our digital mixer, and the interface makes it extremely easy to set the microphone up and adjust it for your particular room. So let me move over to there. So in this user interface, it's a digital mixer that has a plethora of different options of different settings. But one of the main settings, especially for this microphone, is the ease of us to be able to move the lobes around, create multiple different lobes in our system, so we can have up to 6 virtual microphones. Allows us to tilt up and tilt down. So depending on the room layout, depending on where and how people are sitting, we're able to move the microphone to different areas to pick up different areas. Well, different areas to pick up different things. So I'm going to just real quick, this particular lobe is pointing directly at me. I'm actually going to flip this around while I'm talking. So now the microphone lobe is not at me particularly, it's actually looking at a display that's in the front of the room. So the tilt is probably not as clear, not as good. And then also I'm going to tilt this up as if we were at some stand-up tables. Again, should change it a little bit. And I'm going to move everything back to where it was, tilt down, and then back toward the front, which is me. And this is just to demonstrate the ease of installation, the ease of use, the ease of setup for this particular microphone for a huddle room application. Thank you.
All right, Jay, thanks. I think that one of the important things to note on a space like that, in a room like that, when you have the ability to point your lobes in different places, these virtual microphones, that really restores to you the ability to balance your sound in your room. Again, you've got that loud talker, that soft talker, you know, to balance your sound quality and mix it properly so that you don't get to, like you heard when Jay had the element pointed away from him, you could still hear him, but the clarity was not good. And when you have users on an opposite end struggling to hear what's going on, it's actually very exhausting. It takes away from the meeting. It takes away from the information. So that's the important thing on that one. Jay, you got anything else to add?
Nope, that's it. I just wanted to stay in standby in case you wanted me to show anything else.
Oh, that's I think that's good. I think that worked out well. So what we're going to do is Jay, you can go ahead and stop sharing, and we're going to actually take this to Jeff Beck if he's still online. So Jeff Beck is at our at the Sandler training room, which is here local. It's just outside of Akron. This is a training space that is used pretty much on a daily basis to go back and forth between people who are remote at their desks so that they can listen to and they can interact with their training sessions, with the trainer, with participants in the training sessions. And wanted to show how you solve that one. Jeff, are you online? I do not see Jeff.
I believe they were having some network issues over at that location.
Some network crash. Well, I'll tell you what, to make sure that we got our timeliness here, what I'm going to do then is I'm going to shift instead. I'm going to put poor Dan Pelletier and Kaylee Cainwright, our applications engineers. They're downstairs in a different presentation room, and they're going to show you what it looks like for this application. So Dan, go ahead and take over and make it happen.
All right, let's do this. So yeah, I want to thank everybody again for your time. I don't know if you guys got hit by a snowstorm, but we definitely got hit by a spring snowstorm. But yeah, we are in our medium space conference room right now. It's about 18 feet by 25 feet. And what we're going to be talking about here is our discussion systems. This is a discussion system is basically what you would want to consider when you need a turnkey solution, when you need more than just a gooseneck microphone. Maybe you need a little bit of sound reinforcement, and that's exactly what we're using this for here. So discussion systems, I think, kind of inherently carry a little bit of baggage where you might think, ooh, that's, that the term discussion system might feel intimidating, in other words. But we're going to try to simplify this for you here. So we're going to first break this down on a component level, and then we'll get into some of the applications related to it. So the first thing you have is the control unit. It's basically the brain. It's the processor for the entire system. Not going deep into that just yet. But then the next unit you have is the discussion unit. And I have one here that's not connected, where you have just a regular base unit. It has a built-in speaker, a 3-pin XLR, so you can bring your favorite flavor XLR. It also has a talk button, and it has a headphone return channel. So this can be used also as an assisted listening type system. And how all of these connect together is with category cable. So you're looking at either Cat 5e, shielded is preferred, or Cat 6, and they go out of the control unit, Cat 5, into the discussion unit, and then from that discussion unit to the next one. And all of these here that you see, with the exception of this one, are all connected with category cable. And the control unit is the control portion of it is IP based. So you get the IP address. You can pull it from the front of the control unit, or you can get it through our locate app. And you get that IP address, and then you can dial into the system as either an administrator or an operator, and from there you can really easily run the discussion. It really is a good balance between simplicity and being flexible. So from that web interface, you can turn any of the units on or off. You can see who's talking. You can cue sound effects. And speaking of all of that too, how many of these DUs can you connect? Well, you can do 100 discussion units per one control unit, and you can daisy chain 3 of those control units together to get up to 300. But there's only 10 talk channels, and my silly joke is that if you do have 10 people talking at one time, it becomes an argument system and not a discussion system. But really, a lot of that is meant for priority use. So any one of these can be programmed as a priority. So right now I have Kaylee as the priority. So if she wants to turn off my mic mid-sentence right now, all she has to do is hold in the button and I will turn off. And there, I'm off. So I'll have to get myself back in. So if the meetings or the discussion's getting out of hand, a priority can shut everybody off, which I think is pretty fun to do, kind of. We do have different versions of these units. We have an integration unit, which can be mounted under a table. You can have a custom discussion system if you didn't want to have a discussion unit on the table itself. We have an interpretation unit. So if you need language interpretation, we have one of those as well. Again, you do have a flexibility of microphone options. One of the microphone options is the ATUC microphone. This is the M32L. It's about 12 inches long from the gooseneck, from the XLR connection to the tip. We do have a 17-inch version, and we have a 23-inch version, and all of them have this red LED. But if you didn't want an LED, you can go with a Unipoint microphone from Audio-Technica, or you can go with an engineered sound microphone like I'm using here, where you can change the LED color. We also have some storage foams related to this, so it's a very portable system. The setup and teardown is actually very, very simple. Next, what we have is let's put you in some applications. So one would be this, small meeting space. Again, I have a little local speaker that, when questions are asked or when Mark is speaking, I can hear you right here through my local speaker. And part of how I'm able to do that with in this scenario right here is I'm using our ATDM 0604 digital smart mixer with AEC and USB. So yeah, this could be a school board in a box. It could be a municipality. It could be for a municipality, or again, a large meeting space. Because what it really solves is it allows people to be heard that are really kind of far apart. So if you have a CEO at one end of the table and a shareholder at the other end, and you really can't hear what either one are saying, that's a problem. So a discussion system will resolve that. And the number one application that I've been working with in the last year is for municipalities where they're trying to bring in remote participants and have them still participate in the discussion. And in the interest of time, to let you know, we do have a wireless version of the system. This is the wireless discussion unit, and it requires IR emitters because it is an IR-based system. And if you're curious about this system, again, please talk to Dobil, please talk to an applications engineer, and we can help you design that system. It's really a system that needs to be, the applications engineers would need to have their eyes on it just to make sure that, again, that it's going to work properly for your room. And I think that's pretty much it.
I think so.
Cool. I did want to point out something else there. Dan was talking about the integration unit, which, it's actually, this is an integration unit. It's a little box with just a metal box. It's got the in and out RJ45s. One of the nice things about this is if you look, of course, in that room where Dan is, where they've got their tables set up, you could easily put these, underneath the tables, move the tables around however you want. And now connecting a sound system is just as simple as connecting network cables, as daisy chaining network cables. And actually to do that daisy chain and something like this, there's really not anything else that's going to do that besides a discussion system. And it really eliminates any confusion. So that's the presentation system, the discussion system with Dan Pelletier. I see Jeff Beck is back online now. They had a little bit of a internet trouble, but Jeff's going to present. He's going to show you this classroom environment that we have here, this distance learning in our Sandler Training Partners classroom. So Jeff, go ahead, make it happen.
Hey guys, can everybody hear me okay? So,
Yep.
Thank you for taking some time. So what we have here, we are at the Ruby Group in Fairlawn, Ohio, and this is a sales training center that actually we use as clients as Audio-Technica, and they've been gracious enough to let us show the room off. So this particular classroom, pre-pandemic would always be full of people, and there would be maybe a few people logging on via Zoom, but for the most part, it was overwhelmingly in person. And as things have changed over the last few months, that shift has changed to a lot of people logging in and less people being in the room. Now, the idea behind this classroom is to have seamless integration between people at multiple locations. And hopefully you can hear as I walk around this classroom. I don't have a microphone on. I don't have a lapel mic. The microphones are actually in the ceiling. And the way this room is set up, it's about a 30 by 40 room with about 20 tables and a microphone basically for every 2 seats throughout the room. So how it works as people talk in the room, as I walk around the room, it will automatically pick up our sound, pick up the people in the classroom. Everything turns on and turns off based on voice recognition. Nobody's touching microphones. Nobody's talking into the same microphones. Everything's off the table. At the end of a class, the guys can come in here and sanitize the whole space. They're not touching any microphones. One cool thing about these microphones is they're part of our networked solution. So what we did here is we actually created a closed network of microphones throughout this classroom that interfaces with the cameras. As you can see, we're switching around the views a little bit. And all of this happens automatically. So once a system like this is put into your classroom, it's plug and play. So everything is seamless. Now, during the pandemic, this has kind of been a necessity, but as things start to go back to, pre-pandemic protocols, what you'll see is this has kind of opened them up to the rest of the world. So this classroom, this business is no longer limited to the geography that it's in, and they can actually interface seamlessly. I use this system quite a bit, and it is truly amazing how the interaction between people out of the room and people in the room can happen very seamlessly. The system is able to be upgraded for future use. They could add more microphones. They could add more tables. And it's very easy to use. So, just kind of showing another solution separate from kind of what Jay showed with the 954 in the smaller room. This is how you can cover a large space. You could move the tables around in this room, change the layout of the furniture. It would do the same thing. So if you have a multi-purpose room or somewhere, it's very easy to get coverage on the whole thing. It's not something that's going to go on your IT network. It has its own separate network. So the audio is going to be separate from any other data or IT networks that you have in your space, which helps keep the traffic light and the confusion down. So this is kind of what classrooms will start to look like in the future, especially as we go to more models of distance learning and distance communication.
Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate you bringing that to us. I know you had some technical difficulties this morning, but that's we're all faced with that. And yeah, actually, to kind of give you guys an idea, this past year has really been a lot of us working. There's those who say that this whole environment, this online environment, and this technology has really advanced about 5 years, condensed within this last year, of people doing things that they never did before, working from different locations, trying to keep the social distance, yet still have that human interaction. And this Sandler training space has actually served as a model for the way we've been doing a lot of these systems. And we've been doing large college campuses and universities, smaller businesses, We've been doing spaces, like tying in meeting spaces like where Dan and Kaylee are to people who are in their home office. And at the end of the day, it becomes really important to make the right choices to make sure that the audio that you send down that line is clear so that there are no misunderstandings, so it's easy to hear what's going on. And that's really the goal of Audio-Technica, is to bring these transducers into play and give you the best possible audio. So that's pretty much the presentation. We blasted through that pretty well. There's hours and hours more that we could talk about on types of microphones and type of technologies that support that. But really, I think the advice I would have, when you have an application that you bring to your partners at Dobil and say, help us find a solution. Obviously, we're going to help out as much as we can. We'll get involved at whatever stage you guys are comfortable with, but understand that you need to convey them clearly what the whole point is, what the application, what you're trying to do, and then just have a good discussion and solve the problem. We can all work together to make that happen.